One. Hello and welcome to the RM Sotheby's Car Show. We are live on YouTube and I, Felix Archer, I'm going to take you on a quick tour of this incredible factory building. We've got this magnificent lineup of Rennsport's finest on my left, your right, and on your left, my right, is the Aston Martin V-Advantage and short chassis Valente, which we'll probably dig into a little bit later because we don't have time to do that right now. I'm just going to quickly de-shade. This building is incredible and was used for a whole host of fashion shows, and you can see why it's so industrial and makes a great space to hold a car auction. We usually have very whistly, clean venues filled with glamour and lakes and oceans, but this time we're going back to the roots, into the engine room, and we're going to show you what we have done. So in this concrete jungle, we have a great lineup of era-spanning sports cars, grand tourers, racing cars, and the like. We've got a great Gullwing here, which actually comes as a pair with that Roadster, and you should buy it as a pair, because if you don't, well, too bad. We've got a CLK DTM AMG Cabriolet here, a real young timer for the young kids watching this live, which I assume there are many of you. We've got a great DBR9 here, which is a fantastic car. Apparently we're moving away from that car, so we'll just talk about something else then. We've got a great F40 restored by Zanassi, great thing. And we've got a really weird car here, which is a 959 Speedster. You didn't know you'd seen one of them before, but here it is. It is real Marmite. Half the team love it, half the team find it difficult. But I really love it, and I think it's a really, really special car, and it deserves to go to someone equally bonkers as a person that decided to do it in the first place. So follow me around. We've got another CLK DTM AMG here. Lovely Daytona, always see these in our auctions. Right next to, cozying up to a BMW M1, 365 GTC over there, PF cab, and of course a personal favourite of Felix Archer's, a McLaren Formula One car, driven by David Coulthard, two-time Monaco winner. Ex-David Coulthard McLaren Formula One car from the early 2000s, which is now an iconic era. Those of you remember, dominated by none other than Michael Schumacher. But this car was driven by David Coulthard, who won the Monaco Grand Prix, I believe, twice, and doesn't live far away from here, so maybe he should come and sit in it again. In a few moments' time, I'm going to be sat, maybe wearing a different shirt, who knows, with Harvey Stanley, Director of Private Sales UK. He is going to be educating all of you on the contents of our great catalogue of cars being sold tomorrow. But before that, roll titles. Welcome to the RM Sotheby's Car Show. As you saw, I was walking around the venue earlier, having a great time, probably making a fool of myself, talking about the cars, but I'm sat with a true real-life professional, and that is my colleague, Harvey Stanley, who, as we were just discussing, joined us in August last year, but you've been in this business for quite a long time now, and this is both of our first times in the Milan sale.
Yes, well, thanks for having me, Felix.
Yeah,
what a cool space we're sat in. We're here in the same venue that I think Gucci and Versace used for their catwalk fashion shows, here just on the outskirts of Milan. We're a couple of days ahead of the Villa d'Este concours, and we're here with a selection of cars that probably has a bit of something for everybody.
Yeah, it's the typical RM spread, complete era-defining mixture of lowish value for the entry level to the creme de la creme at the very top. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through, as we normally do, not necessarily the highlights, but a selection of great cars that we've got coming up for sale tomorrow at 6 p.m. And I think why not start with one of the highlight cars, which is the Miura SV. So this was a split sump car, so it's a late car, fully restored, which won the Best of Show in the 50th anniversary event, restored by Bob Leff, if I'm correct.
Yeah, in the States, yeah.
And matching numbers, but it's no reserve, so the highest bid wins. So why should someone buy an SV over an S or a standard P400?
Yeah, I mean, the easy way to tell an SV apart from a P400 and an S is obviously the lack of eyelashes on the front clam. So there's always bragging rights by having the best of any type. There's always bragging rights by turning up in an SV when all your pals just turn up in P400s and S's. But the SVs with the split sump, they are better, they are more powerful, they are rarer. And with the wider rear arches, they do have that more almost motorsport-esque stance that you don't get with those early cars. Ultimately, if you can afford to have the very best of the best, this is the very best of the best. And the Miura, which has always been a super iconic, the original supercar, is almost still growing massively in its reputation as a collector's car.
It seems that it's always in all of the great collections. We'll have a Miura in the same way that there will be a Gullwing in every great collection. Do you think it's? Do you still think it's the Italian effect?
No, I actually don't. I don't think people buy Miuras because of the Italian job anymore, in the same way that maybe people buy DB5s because of the James Bond effect. I don't think that's what it is. But I do think, stylistically speaking, the way that car has aged, the way that shape has aged, the way car design has moved on, and where we are now in style, whereas other cars maybe of that era, and if you think about a Miura, the shape of a Miura is a 60s designed car. Now, there are lots of 60s designed cars which are diminishing maybe in popularity with today, the generation of collectors today, but the Miura seems to have almost like had a second wind, if you like. It's almost that shape and that design is becoming more and more resonant as time goes on. So it's probably more that it speaks of a piece of design rather than the fact that it was in the Italian job.
And am I right in saying it was only the late cars that had the split sump?
Yes.
And this, of course, has...
It's an SV thing, so this is an SV. So it has a split sump. Now, back in the day, people took S's and P400s and would convert them to split sump, but no, only SVs had split sump from new.
It's an amazing car, and we're really pleased to have it in the auction. And it's
also how exciting to have it at no reserve.
Well, it's anything no reserve is always really exciting because it really is the highest bid wins, and there's no doubt about it. It's just come and play, and it's so inviting. And I think we find typically that because of that strategy, things go very well, because of course there's many people that might think, well, I'll have a go at that because the highest bid wins.
Yeah.
And it works every time. That's a great car, and we're looking forward to, I believe that's the last lot of the sale, so there'll be a lot of people waiting around to see what that does. But speaking of icons, the next car I want to discuss is a 300 SL Gullwing we have. Now, we have two in the sale, and they're quite different. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on this, because it seems that there's a natural hierarchy, and that's not to take away from, necessarily take away from the cars that don't have all the optional extras, because, of course, every Gullwing might have its own special story associated to it. But it does seem that the NSL cars are sort of shooting away in the distance from everything else.
Yeah, I think when you have a model like a Gullwing or a 2.7 RS or an F40, for example, roughly speaking, they made 1,500 of each, where those three cars have very high levels of iconic status. So a collector needs to have a good 2.7 RS, a good Gullwing, and a good F40. Now, because, to all intents and purposes, all F40s are the same, they're actually all even the same color, suddenly you start to really feel the difference in a non-car or a car with sliding windows over a car that doesn't. On like the F40 behind you, for example, if that car happened to have sliding windows, it might be 300,000 or 400,000 euros more for that almost irrelevant detail. With a 2.7 RS, a lightweight's worth a lot more than a touring, even though in reality the 80, 90, 100 kilo saving is neither here nor there. It takes a 2.7 RS and being a 700,000 euro car or a €1 million car. And when you talk about Gullwings, it's in the details. So color's very important. Color's very important, and the options are important. So the key main options are Rudge wheels, sport suspension, and NSL engine. And NSL would be by far and away the rarest of those, and arguably the one that actually makes a performance difference.
Do you think the color thing is actually the most recent variation in price?
Yeah, I think so. I think the way the market's gone and the way people appreciate aesthetics over maybe driving, and maybe that's a value thing. You know, when a car's 100 grand, people that buy these cars are maybe more interested in how they can drive them. When a car's, you know, a million or multi-millions, the reality is it's going to be driven less and looked at more. So maybe that's why the color thing comes back into it so much more.
It's quite interesting as well, because you could say to someone, here's a Gullwing with NSL engine, sport suspension, Rudge wheels, let's say, but it was born in a standard color that there were multiples and multiples of. Or you can have a completely standard car, but it's the only one in this color. There might be some people that go, I want the one with the special color. Yeah. And I'm not bothered about, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, there's 2 Gullwings in the sale. The black car was originally born in DB353, which is a light metallic blue, which is a great color.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's a great color. Now, yeah, I think the real purist will tell you that an NSL engine is a far rarer and more important thing than a special color. But at the end of the day, if 2 Gullwings roll past you, one's silver and one's light blue, you're probably going to look at the light blue car a little bit more. And you don't have the time to, unless you pull the guy over in the silver car and ask if he has an NSL engine, you probably won't realize how special that option is. So,
yeah, it's well, the good news is that we can
we can cater for both tastes.
We can tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. On to the next car, which is probably the most divisive car, not only to the general public, but internally at RM Sotheby's as well. Behind us is the brainchild, behind you, sorry, is the brainchild of an extremely, I don't even know if eccentric is the right word, eccentric man who bought
Karl-Heinz Fustel.
Yes, who bought a 959 that had been crashed on the Autobahn and decided to take it into his workshop and make something that some would question didn't need to be seen, and many say absolutely should be seen. And I think it's the divisive nature of this car which makes it so exciting, and definitely, in my opinion, the most intriguing moment of tomorrow's auction. That is the 959 Speedster, which hopefully, here we go, they cut to the tape now.
Well, what I didn't realise, I've just nipped back here, and where our parts are stored are 2 ginormous wooden flight cases. Have you seen these? Yeah, and if you open these up, they're sort of lined with Porsche headlining, and in one box is a full roof, sunroof, full roof, rear windows to turn it back into a coupe, and in the other box is a second windscreen and smaller wing mirrors and the A-pillar that goes around the windscreen to turn it into more of a speedster as opposed to a cabriolet. So you've actually got 3 configurations of
I mean, they went completely to town on this thing. I mean, it's, whatever you think about it, it's an extraordinary piece of design. It would be such a shame for someone to turn it back, and I hope it never is, because I think it deserves to be. It spent so much of its life. It's not like it was done in 2010. It was done.
No. It spent a year of its life as a 959 coupe, and the rest of its life as the 959 Speedster.
Yeah, because if we were selling it today as a standard car, it would be, well, arguably be strangely difficult, because it would be a car that had a massive shunt on the Autobahn. And actually, you have to just park all those reservations, because there's this whole new thing that is turned up in front of us. And it's so eccentric as a piece of design.
It's really growing on me.
Do you like it?
At first,
You're allowed to say no.
No, at first I really didn't like it, but it's really growing on me. What I really like about it from a spectator's point of view, if you like, it's going to be bought by somebody that likes it and is buying it because they want it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be bought by somebody because it's a stellar blue chip investment, because it's a wild card, you know. So, yeah, I really hope whoever buys it keeps it on their yacht in the south of France or whatever, and smokes it round with the roof down.
Well, to your point about people driving past, if we did not know this car existed and we were sat at Villa d'Este having a cocktail at the weekend, and someone drove through in your 959, we'd probably just continue the conversation.
I'd probably tell you how much better a car on F40 is than a 959, and, and pay no attention whatsoever. But if the 959 Speedster came past, then I would have no answer.
He'd get out and shake their hand.
I would have no response.
I'm officially lost for words. I don't know if you're the smartest guy in the world or you've made a fatal mistake. But we'll find out tomorrow, and I think the car will have the last laugh because it's proven pretty popular amongst our clients, and I really do hope it deserves to go to a good home and someone, as you say, that will love it. Now, as you say that an F40 is the winner of the 959.
Yes, it is. It's a much better car.
Okay, so that leads us neatly onto our restored F40, and usually we are taking cars that, it seems like F40s, there's a big focus on originality, and this is actually kind of turning over a new leaf and trying something different. Yeah,
so I was flicking through the history file of a 250 short wheelbase the other day. 1960 car. It was restored in 1988, so it's 28 years old. And then it was restored again in 2000, between 2000 and 2010. So by 2011, it had 2 restorations. Now, its first restoration being when it was 25 years old. Well, F40s are now 35, 40 years old. So it's actually not outrageous that they would now need to be restored. Now, of course, unlike a 250 short wheelbase, they're not made of steel, they don't rust, so they don't need restoration for rust reasons. But when F40s were new, the owners were encouraged to collect them from the factory. They were encouraged to drive them home from Maranello to London, Paris, wherever they came from. And so they picked up stone chips, and like the very nature of an F40 is a massive exposed front end. It's very low, so they do pick up stone chips. And actually, if you drive an F40, particularly if you drive it in the wet, the condition will deteriorate. And like anything in life, if you ever want to get it back to being like it was on day one, a proper restoration is the only way to do that. So,
do you think this is actually the beginning of potentially a wave that's about to come where people say, do you know what, it's worn out rather than worn in?
No, I don't think it's anything new. I think 288s and F40s have been being restored for 5 or maybe even 10 years. Sure, initially you start with cars that are tatty that need it, but I had a very good client of mine who's a seriously big car collector. He's had his F40 for 23 years. He took it on the F40 rally. When he came back, he said, honestly, I've just got to the point with the car now that I want it to have a birthday. Like, I've decided I want to keep the car forever. I don't care what the market says. I don't care that it's original paint. It's also got 133 stone chips. Like, let's make it perfect. I love my F40. I want it to look like it did when I first collected it. Let's restore it. I don't think there's any. It's unusual to have an F40 that's been restored, but I would much rather, and I've looked at a lot of F40s. I would much rather have a car that's been either fully restored, fully original, and not this in between. Well, it's had a bit of paint there and a bit of paint there, and it had this done 1 year. And I'd rather just have a car that's been restored.
Why is it that I've only ever been a passenger in an F40, and anyone that I know that owns one, there's a sort of recurring theme throughout them in terms of the comment on the car. Why is it that people always look back to that car as one of the great driving experience? What does it do that hasn't been able to be replicated? Is it safety? Is it weight? Would it be possible to make that experience again?
I think a lot of the F40's charm comes from, look, I am so privileged to have driven a number of F40s and to have driven a McLaren F1. And a McLaren F1 is by far the superior piece of engineering, by far the superior motor car. However, if you said to me, Harv, you've got to drive to Monaco for the Grand Prix on Saturday, and you're in Milan, you can take a McLaren F1 or an F40. I'd take an F1, and the reason for that is it's sort of so emotive, and I think half the reason is it's not perfect. The brakes aren't very good. It's very noisy. The suspension's quite hard. You feel all the bumps in the road. The power delivery, I think a lot of it is to do with the power delivery. Power delivery is aggressive. So, most cars on a completely open piece of road, you put your foot flat to the floor. In an F40, you never ever have the confidence to bury the throttle. So it
Because it's not linear at all.
No, exactly. So it kind of demands this respect from you that maybe other cars don't. And I think that's quite exhilarating. She's like a supermodel. She's flawed, but she's very beautiful, and she's probably going to be a nightmare. But in a way, it keeps you on your toes, and on the basis that you don't have to live with her every day. It's fine.
But you want to stay together forever.
Yeah, if you could just, once a fortnight.
So would that actually be your car of everything here? Would that be the one you'd take away? Just for a moment, forget the histories and all of the stuff, just for what the car is.
Yes, I would. Yeah. No, for me, an F40 is. Yeah, that's that. If I could have any one car, then I'd have an F40. Yeah.
And where does the F50 and the 288 sit for you?
I think a 288 is a great thing. I love the fact that no one knows what they are unless they know. I really like that if you know, you know type thing about a 288. They've got a similar power delivery. They're in a way more dangerous. Whilst they're less powerful, they have slightly narrower tyres, but they have like full leather seats, electric windows, and air conditioning. So you get lulled into a false sense of security that you're in a benign 308, and then suddenly you use the power and they open up. So I love a 288. To me, and I appreciate they made 284 288s and they made 1,350 F40s. So I know why 288 is more valuable, but to me, an F40 is more special. An F50, I'm not a massive fan of. I actually really like the way they look, which is not to everybody's taste. But I don't love the driving experience. I don't love the noise. The engine's bolted to the carbon monocoque, so you get a lot of mechanical vibration as opposed to with an F40 you just get induction, turbo, wastegate, and exhaust. So just for my taste, I think an F40's it's more rough and ready. Like an F50 is more sophisticated, but I like it rough.
Well, hopefully this Zanassi restored F40 will find a great home tomorrow.
Well, they're the guys. Zanassi are the guys. If you're going to have an F40 restored, Zanassi would be the place to go.
Yeah. Quick interlude, just to say that this is the first episode of the new season of the RM Sotheby's podcast. However you consume your podcast, it will be available. And we encourage you to tune in because there'll be lots of great stuff coming up. And also thank you to everyone that's been tuning in because we have no idea how many people are listening, but it's really great to get the feedback from everyone out there, and we really enjoy doing it, so thank you very much. And here's a taster of what is to come.
What you get with the Ferrari is 12 cylinders more of anxiety, isn't it?
Yeah, what are we talking about? You crazy English people.
Sometimes I own cars that I really shouldn't own because I can't afford to own them. If anything goes wrong on this car,
Yes.
I'm sunk.
Hashtag just drive it.
And I came so close to what I felt was a moment where I could have died.
Quite traumatic.
It was, and I just sat there.
Did you get out and say, that's an amazing car? How much of this is going to go out? Oh, it's live.
It's live, actually.
Too late. Harvey said I look much better with long hair. So I'll grow it throughout the season. Now, we are on to our highlight car, which is the Alfa Romeo 8C 2300. And this is very, very special because actually we were speaking about pillars of collections, and there's quite a few collectors out there. They have a great 8C. So if you're looking at the generational collection that follows from, let's say, the beginning of when the collector cars really start to present day, there's always a great 8C.
Yeah.
And the great ones don't really come up at auctions. It seems to be a sort of privately sold market. So to have something this special come up is very, very intriguing. And I think it's worth knowing that to find something this original is also incredibly difficult. And what always blows my mind is we walk around these auctions and we just assume stuff is, still retains its matching numbers, etc. But actually, when you think that car is it's not far off from being 100 years old.
Yeah.
And everything that could have happened along the way could have lost this and this and this. It's astounding when you find something that actually is remarkably original.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, an Alfa 8C is like an old master in our world. It's something that generally a car of that significance and a car of that quality generally stays in a collection for 20, 30, 40 years. So for us to be offering a car like that here today, and in Italy as well, is quite fabulous. I also think it's fascinating to think that in 1933 that car was displayed in the Monaco Concorde Elegance. And when we kind of think of as a Concorde as something for old cars, not for cars that are a year old, but of course in 1933 there weren't that many old cars.
But also you just think, what would that have looked like when that came out? And what in the context of 1933, when that was displayed, that must have looked like a spaceship had just landed.
Yeah, just look at how elegant it is. Look at how unashamedly stylish it is.
Yeah, it's stunning. It really is. But
it's everything you want from a supercar, which
it kind of is.
Honestly, I think we've lost a little bit in car design today. There are a few exceptions. Maybe you could draw a comparison between that and a Pagani Utopia, or if there's anything new that is almost decadent in its beauty. A lot of what we get now is almost functional or very samey. And the other thing, obviously, about these cars of that period is they really were handmade and they really are all different.
Yeah. And it looks like it's a very strange thing to say, but it looks like it's in motion. The way it's designed.
Absolutely.
It's extraordinary. That front end is just so beautiful. So we thank the consignor for entrusting the car to us, and we hope it does what it deserves to do tomorrow afternoon. Now, we had a conversation earlier when we were looking at some numbers on the Porsches, and we were talking about the 2.7 RS earlier, and it seems like it's quite a good segue into this car, the next car. The 2.7 RS is, again, a pillar of a great collection, like an F40 or a Gullwing or a DB5 Vantage or whatever it is. But is this the hidden secret?
Yeah.
Is it still? Is it still the unloved?
If everybody needs to have an F40 in their collection, a 3-litre RS is to a 2.7 RS what an F40 LM is to an F40. No exaggeration. Not all F40 LMs did Le Mans. In fact, very few did Le Mans. They made 50 3-litre Carrera RSs, and I think 22 did Le Mans. Those cars were absolutely the next step up. Like I said, they only made 50.
And am I right in saying multiple years of Le Mans as well?
Yeah.
There are some cars that did it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, if you were to go to Le Mans in 74, you would see a 3-litre RS. If you were to go to Le Mans in 77, 78, or 79, you would still be seeing a 3-litre RS. They dominated...
Extraordinary longevity.
They dominated rallying. They dominated the Tour de France. They dominated that class at Le Mans. Now, they made 50 3-litre RSs and 50 RSRs. Generally speaking, there's very, very little difference between them. The RSRs had 917 brakes, so they had different wheels, and they had wider rear arches with the brake cooling ducts. But actually, around Le Mans, and wider wheels, around Le Mans, 3-litre RS does a quicker lap time because there's a lot less drag in an RS with the slightly narrow arches and the narrow wheels. So it really is a race car for the road. And if you were to drive a 2.7 RS back-to-back with a 3-litre RS, you wouldn't believe they were made of the same materials. I mean, they're so different. Fantastic, fantastic engine in a 3-litre RS. Bags and bags and bags of torque. And, like an RS, this car retains its thin metal original shell, so it's very light, under 1,000 kilos.
And so beautiful.
Oh, it's just a brilliant car. Brilliant, brilliant car.
No, it's so strange as well because again it's sort of that it's so much rarer as well than a 2.7 RS, even a lightweight. It's so
much rarer.
And how many of these are left?
1,300 2.7 RS is 200 lightweights, 50 3-litre RSs.
And how many of those 50 are around?
How many are left with their original shell? Maybe you take another third out of that, so you're down to 30 cars. 6 right-hand drive. So you're suddenly down to 23, 24 left-hand drive cars of this caliber.
It's super hard to find. So it doesn't...
And whether you like it or not, this car doesn't have a spectacular race history. It has a little bit, but it doesn't have enough that it then got converted into a 934 or a 935 where they cut up the arches and modified it. Like it certainly has. I mean, it did the Targa Florio, so it's not no race history, but it didn't go on racing for 7 or 8 years, which inevitably means they get modified and turned into something different. So I don't think enough people appreciate quite how special 3-litre RS is.
Yeah.
There have been some very strong auction results.
Yeah.
We sold a car from the White Collection, I think, 18 months, 2 years ago at very strong money.
Yep.
We sold a car in Monterey last summer for very strong money. This car at a low estimate of €1 million is not very strong money. So I really hope that sails through to the high estimate.
Yeah, it deserves to, because it's such a lovely car. It's just, just opening the door and you poke your nose in for 5 seconds and it's just lovely. It's really
nice.
It's really lovely. Now, everyone always asks us, why is an XJ220 this value? So may I open the topic up again? Why is an XJ220 not the same money as its brothers and sisters?
Well, do you think it might be related to why the world is not fabulously excited about the new F80 Ferrari supercar because it has a V6?
But it looks amazing.
It does look amazing.
And they also built a cracking race car.
They made a great
They
race
made a
car.
cracking
They
race
made
car.
a great
That's
race
the
car.
thing that, again, I can't get my head round. You know, Win Percy in an XJ220 LM.
Yeah. And it's striking, you know, it looks every bit you want from your 80s, 90s supercar. It's outrageous, you double take at it, you can't find where the headlights are, and then they don't pop up, they swivel round, you can't see out of it. Yeah, it deserves to be worth as much as certainly an early Countach, which are trading at 700,000 or 800,000 euros. So, yeah, it's a bit of a sleeper. They made a lot of them. Maybe they
struggled to sell them in the first place.
Yeah, but then they struggled to sell McLaren F1s in the first place.
That turned out okay.
Yeah, that's turned out okay.
That turned out okay. But no, this one's, it's funny that we describe it as a higher mileage car at being 26,000, but, you know, if I went on Auto Trader to try and find a Golf, 26,000 would do me just fine. It's one of the higher mileage cars on the market, but I think it just encourages use and enjoyment.
Yeah, and we spoke about colours earlier.
Le Mans Blue is stunning.
It's fantastic. I think it's the best colour.
Me too.
It's an awful lot of silver cars. The green is okay, but it can be a little bit hard to get on with. I think the blue is fantastic. I think it's a great car, and it, you know, again, should do well in what's trending in the market at the minute.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see how that one gets on. It's a known life throughout its history, and had a repaint at some point in its life back to a Le Mans Blue. Now the next car is kind of feels like it's very in vogue with the new generation of people coming in, who maybe look at an XJ220 and say that's a bit old. This car is particularly bonkers to drive, I'm told.
Yeah, so they made a CLK DTM Coupe and a CLK DTM Roadster.
And the good news is
we've got both.
We've got both.
Would you like to know a fun fact about the CLK DTM Roadster?
Would love to.
Now, at the time it was launched, it was not only the fastest convertible four-seater, but it was the only convertible four-seater in which one could travel 4 up at over 200 miles an hour.
That is a great stat.
That is a great stat. And of course, on the Autobahn where it was conceived, entirely legal to be 4 up, doing 200 miles an hour with the roof down.
Would you like to do that?
Yeah.
You would?
I wouldn't mind being in the front. I don't think I want to be in the back.
The buffer thing.
Now, I don't know if since anybody has made a 200 mile an hour open four-seater, but I don't think they have.
No one would be able to hear the person in the back screaming, please slow down, or I'm terrified, or let me out.
There's a great video that a friend of mine and a friend of RM, George Housen of Petroleum & Co. produced with an Instagram sensation and a former Time Person of the Year, Francis Bourgeois, who's a train spotter, a very, very fantastic, enthusiastic train spotter.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
And George had this fabulous idea. I think it was my idea, actually, but George can have it. To try and chase a train with Francis, GoPro'd up, in a car. And they managed to secure the services of another friend of RM, Chris Harris.
Who was totally into the idea.
Oh, yeah.
And what the result is so infectious.
Yeah, and a CLK DTM Roadster. So, sure enough, I think it's a steam train, is accelerating out of a station, giving it the toots. And, of course, being a 200 mile an hour open 4-seat, there's plenty of room for Francis and Chris to catch the train up on said dual carriageway and have a side-by-side with the train. It's actually very, very cool video.
A very heartwarming video, I find.
Yeah.
Because Francis is so interested in the CLK.
Yeah, he loves
and
it.
also very clued up.
Oh, he loves cars. He's really into his cars. Really, really into his cars.
And really knows his stuff on. If he knows 10% about cars, and like he does trains, he should just come and work at RM. Because he has extraordinary depth of knowledge.
Yeah, he's
and we could do with those kind of YouTube numbers
he's a really
as well,
infectious young. Yeah, that would really help. Really help. No, it's right. You know, I guess that gives you an element of why you would have the cab over the coupe, because there are instances where having the roof down is quite laughably fun. I much prefer the shape of the coupe. I think its stance is, again, so motorsport.
Yeah, it is. It's so DTM.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, either or would be fine.
But it's a proper monster, isn't it? And do you feel like we are riding the crest of a bit of a wave with those at the moment?
Yeah, I think Mercedes as a road car brand have been overlooked quite a lot. I think people are beginning to realise how important a brand Mercedes are. Those cars were built by the motorsport department. That they're not. A lot of supercars of that era are ordinary cars that have just been badged up as an M Sport or an R or an S or an ST or whatever the acronym is. These cars are not that. You just have to look at them. You have to look at how much carbon there is. Look how focused the steering wheel. Look how many parts on that car are not found on any other Mercedes. They're a seriously special thing, and they're rare, very, very rare.
It'll be interesting to see. And again, like the Gullwings, we do have both versions, so it'll be interesting to see where they land, respective to one another, tomorrow. So the final car, and this is arguably a personal favourite of mine in the auction, is a 1954 Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith limousine by Vignale, coming direct from a fantastic collection. There's one thing that sets this motor car apart from everything else.
Please enlighten me.
I think you'd have an enlightening experience in this car if you were to truly utilise it for everything it was designed for, which is inside there is a toilet come champagne cooler. Now, you can sit in your DTM Roadster at 200 miles an hour with 3 of your friends, or you could hop into this and have a really...
So are you telling me that it's interchangeable as a toilet or champagne cooler?
No, I think it would be difficult to use them both for their purpose at the same time.
Right. Right.
But perhaps after this video we could try. I'll get the Bollinger and you go and drink lots of water.
Really quite something. Did I read that it has a television in the back?
I assume that wasn't a 1954 television. Hopefully it would be a late 90s plasma.
Oh, fantastic.
For your
it's quite the thing.
It is. It sort of gives Ford Anglia at the back.
Yeah. Well, at 120,000 euros, the nice thing is you could have 4 of them as opposed to just one CLK DTM.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's the pitch there.
Are there 4 of them?
I don't think so. Not with a plasma. I need to go and check the dimensions of the television, but I think every now and then something comes up in an RM auction which truly takes my breath away for various reasons. And there's two actually in this auction. One is the 959 Speedster, and the other is the loo-ridden limousine. And I think that's a good way to end this podcast episode, because I'm sure all of you out there will be frantically Googling the Vignale-bodied Silver Wraith limousine and discussing what we are talking about, which is a...
I suspect all around Europe there are now groups of men working out which friends they can get to come a half or a thirds each so they can buy this limousine for future trips to Royal Ascot, or perhaps.
Yeah, but also, if they can't, how they could plumb one in to their current vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very sensible place to end.
Thank you so much, cameras over there. Thank you so much for watching us talk nonsense to one another, but actually thank you very much to Harvey for enlightening us with
Thanks for having
his extensive car knowledge. It's been very interesting to hear your thoughts on the catalogue, and I'm excited to work together on trying to make sure everything here goes to a great home. Thank you so much, and as we said earlier, please listen to our podcast on YouTube or however you consume your podcast. Register to bid because the auction is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Italian time. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.